Ayurveda, interestingly enough, in its own pure form, and admittedly Ayurveda is not so nicely represented today. Most, at least my experience, most of these Ayurvedic doctors you run into, they're just businessmen. They just want to make money. So they're not Brahmins. Actually, the Vaidya, the Ayurvedic doctor, is supposed to be a Brahmana. And Ayurveda is also fundamentally dealing with the modes of nature that are working on our consciousness. And there's a very, very extensive analysis of psychological types in Ayurveda. There are, if I may remember correctly, I think 7 basic types of mind that are taught in Ayurveda, and then in these 7 there are subdivisions. So it actually gets quite elaborate. So this is another form of psychoanalysis in Ayurveda. So yes, we should try to keep under the roof of the Veda. If need be, we can go outside of the strict realm of devotional service, 9-fold processes of bhakti, because we may have certain severe karmic complications that require additional help. And Srila Prabhupada, I've just read you where Srila Prabhupada says it may be done. There are other processes. So all of this is meant, ultimately, to bring us to the point of discriminating between our real self and this material mind. So simply, learning all kinds of technical details, and I will be presenting here technical details in these days, and that is important. But just constructing in your mind some schema of the mind and how it works, that is not going to be enough to come to this point of viveka. Viveka means to be able to discriminate between self, atma, and this material thing in the mode of goodness, the manas, the mind. We are spirit soul. And so we need to enact the transcendental level of our existence. You see? The reason that we're so overwhelmed by this mind is because spiritually we're so weak. Our degree of self-realization is very slight at the present moment. That I am not this body, I am spirit soul, if we speak honestly, is largely still theoretical. You see? And we look at our practical affairs, we see we're still much on the acting as if we're surrendered to the mental energy, acting as if we were mind, identifying with the mind as the self. So simply forming a subtle mental construction of philosophy, ideas, theories, is not really going to bring us to this point of viveka. What we need is to strengthen our spiritual consciousness, our awareness of ourself. Atma Gyan, Atma Vidya. And we do this how? So this is our essential process, is chanting the holy name of Krishna. If we chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is plugging the soul into the internal potency. And so the soul is becoming supercharged with spiritual energy. We are becoming stronger and stronger in our spiritual identity. And when that happens, then it becomes easy to see the difference between my real self and the mind. So actually, when I tell you that there are these 2 aspects of gaining control of the mind, of purifying the mind, positive and negative, actually these positive, negative, this really pertains simply to the chanting of the holy name. That we should chant, yes, positively, like Srila Prabhupada. Let's hear what Srila Prabhupada says. In a 1970 initiation lecture, he was giving initiation, Harinam Diksha, to disciples. Now, you know, when initiation is given, you promise to chant 16 rounds a day. Listen to what Srila Prabhupada was saying in 1970 as he was giving beads to these first initiated disciples. If you stick to this principle, Gopi Bhartar Parakamal Yordasa Dasa Anadasa, that I am nothing except the eternal servant of Krishna, and then you are in the liberated platform. Krishna consciousness is so nice. You keep yourself. And for keeping yourself in that consciousness, the simple method is this chanting. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
You keep yourself chanting as many hours, 24 hours. Why as many hours? 24 hours. Kirtaniya Sarahari. Lord Chaitanya says, this is to be practiced 24 hours. And that you can do. He's speaking to disciples he's just given the beads to. He's telling them to chant 24 hours a day. And he's telling them that you can do. You see, because when we hear that, oh, I can't do that. Prabhupada says, no, that you can do. And that you can do. It simply requires practice. So we begin chanting 16 rounds a day. Even in sleeping you can chant Hare Krishna. Even in sleeping. And there is no bar. In sleeping and eating and going to the toilet room, there is no restriction. You can go on Hare Krishna, you see. That will keep you in your swarup, in your real identification, and you'll never be attacked by Maya. So, this is basically the whole process. To take the chanting to heart, to keep the chanting going 24 hours a day. And negative aspect means anything that interferes with this, to remove, to push away, to avoid, to get rid of. Anything that somehow interferes with this cultivation of the chanting of Hare Krishna, that is to be negated, rejected. So the positive part is the holy name itself, and the negative part is the exclusion of any other thought or activity other than those that are centered on the holy name and service to the holy name. So this is Krishna consciousness. Everything in Krishna consciousness is aimed ultimately at chanting, at serving the holy name. This is the Sankirtan movement. This is a movement of service to the spreading of the holy name throughout the world. So, and another thing that's very important is that we should have confidence. We should know that we can win over the secret army of anti-devotional desires. What do I mean by secret army? Well, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that calm, material desire has captured our mind, our intelligence, and our senses. Srila Prabhupada in his purport explains that these are strategic positions, and they have been captured by calm. And as I said, we do not know the depth of our desires that are infecting our mind, our intelligence, and our sense activities. So this is a formidable army, and it is a secret army. You see, we cannot see the full array of this military force. But we should have confidence that we can defeat it. And that confidence, it manifests as an interest in these very subjects that we're talking about now. We should maintain an interest in purifying our mind, in gaining control over the mind's functions, in engaging the mind completely in Krishna's service. This should be our interest. We should not give up that interest. There's an Upanishad, Pingala Upanishad. So it states that the jiva remains in bondage as long as there is no desire for liberation. Bondage means, according to Pingala Upanishad, the lack of investigation, the lack of interest, in other words. oh yeah, this subject matter, it boggles my mind, it's too hard, I don't know. You see? So if there's no interest, then how can we come to this cultivation of purification of the mind, cultivation of this liberation from the mind's bondage? Liberation, according to Pingala Upanishad, follows investigation. So, don't throw in the towel. Sometimes you hear devotees, I've heard members of the Krishna consciousness movement, even in very high positions, they start to argue, quoting Gita. Lord Krishna says, what can repression accomplish? You just have to accept your nature, whatever it is. Just go with the flow. And they kind of just throw up their hands and, yes, I was born a Malecha, so a Malecha I will be. I can't help myself. And their philosophies, they evolve philosophies based on these ideas. But this is not the message of Bhagavad Gita. This is not what Krishna tells Arjuna. Because what did Arjuna want to do in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita? He wanted to give up the fight. So is this what it means? What can repression accomplish? That Krishna says, oh Arjuna, you don't want to fight? Oh, what can repression accomplish? Fine, go ahead. You leave the battlefield. You can leave Gandiva Bo here for someone else, and you just go wherever you want to go. The Prophet said, we do not see in Bhagavad Gita, this is from a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, I'm quoting, Srila Prabhupada said, we do not find in Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, yes Arjuna, you can sit down and smoke marijuana, and I will fight the battle for you. Exact quote from Srila Prabhupada. Although this goes on in the name of spiritual life, famously in India, the so-called sadhus smoking their chillums, and this is supposed to be some kind of sadhana, and such things go on in ISKCON. I've heard of devotees who say it's better to follow, if you can't follow 4 regular principles, then at least follow 3. No meat, no fish, no eggs. And no beer on Ekadasi. No beer on Ekadasi. Now this is throwing in the towel in the name of don't repress. So of course I don't want to sound like I'm mocking anyone, because one can be, Prabhupada said, according to we have different karmas, so someone may be very much under the heavy blows of material nature, may have been very conditioned from bad association in the past, and they may find it hard, difficult to remain steady in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said in the beginning, there's this what he called rocky boat stage, like you enter into a canoe, and so it rocks, and it's hard to keep your balance. Well, it may be like that. But my point is here, we should maintain the interest. We should not become dull-headed. Just click off the mind, all right, it's just too much. Goodbye. At least that interest should be there. At least we should delve into the philosophy. You find in the 12th chapter, there's a hierarchy of, if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. And finally, Lord Krishna says at the very bottom, at least cultivate knowledge. You see? So at least do that. At least take up this investigation of this. This shows a spark of interest, and then that it can be fanned as we approach Srila Prabhupada's books. And so this is also a purpose of this seminar. Is try to fan this interest. To show how by understanding Srila Prabhupada's books from this, so to speak, psychological angle, which is not really an angle, it's just understanding the philosophy in its fullness. But by understanding in this way, we're actually getting the keys to liberation from the material mind. And if we get the keys to liberation from the material mind, then This means the end of our problems in Krishna consciousness, actually. Yes. So Lord Krishna says, and we should take hope in these words, O many-armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So suitable practice and detachment, these are essential features of this Vedic psychology. Now, of course, the mind is offering a great challenge to all this. It's not just a matter that we have all this basement full of so many desires, unmentionable desires, heavy material desires cooking away. And here we are, we're trying to now just develop spiritual desire by our chanting. And so there's a conflict between these two categories of desire. It's not just that. It's that this mind itself, the nature of the mind itself, as Krishna says in Gita, chanchala, astiram. Chanchala means flickering. Astiram means unsteady. The mind is an anarchist. The mind does not want to accept control. Now you may say to me, but you said in the beginning the essential nature of the mind is the material mode of goodness. Yes. And you see, Brahmanas are in the mode of goodness. And Brahmana society by itself in Varnashram Dharma, it is a kind of enlightened anarchy. Brahmanas are always very opinionated. You bring Brahmanas together, Munis together, everyone has their own opinion. They can go on discussing, endlessly coming to no conclusion. That's why there has to be Kshatriyas in Varnashram Dharma. The Kshatriya sets the Brahmanas down and says, I'm giving you 24 hours. Conclusion. The Kshatriya is the practical man. You have 24 hours, you can talk, but I'm coming back here and I want an answer. See? And then if they're not able to give an answer, then he'll just listen to them. You all speak, and then he will say, this is the answer. He'll just extract the best of what they've said. Or he might just come to his own conclusion. This is Kshatriya. He's practical man. So Srila Prabhupada says, Varnashram Dharma, he says in one Bhagavatam purport, Varnashram Dharma is really simply, in essence, the cooperation between these two classes, Brahmana and Kshatriya. So Kshatriya is actually more passionate, but actually the buddhi, the intelligence, is actually of the quality of the Rajoguna. The intelligence is the thing that firmly says, no, this is the way to go. Whereas the mind's tendency is just to go on, thinking, new and new ideas, and that's far out, and that's even more far out. Look at it this way. And from that angle of vision, from the other side, on the other hand. So, we have to understand this quality of the mind, that the mind is not really inclined to accept any control at all, neither spiritual nor material. The mind has a natural proclivity to roam about, to flip out, to zoom in as near and zoom out as far away as it likes. There only needs to be a little push in some direction, and the mind will doggedly pursue that line of thought for a long time. Great effort is required to stop it or change its direction. So again, we're coming to the point, the original point, that the mind is a real thing. It's a stubborn, independent thing. It is not just a wisp or a shadow, something that we can trifle with, something we can ignore. We really have to pay attention to what the mind is doing. We also have the problem of what's called compulsive thinking. So the mind is always babbling on and on like some inner radio. There's always thoughts flashing through the mind. This is known as the inner dialogue in psychology. So then also in the mind is the fear of loss. So when these two things become combined, this inner dialogue, babbling, and our fears, then that can become like a compulsive, oppressive voice inside. Just like, on the path of spiritual life, we have to deal with that. Because as we're coming closer and closer to Krishna, that means giving up the things that separate us from Krishna. And giving up the mind may protest. Wait a minute. You give that up, then where will you be? Who will take care of you? The mind becomes obsessive and starts to preach from within. And this can become a very great disturbance. Let's see. When you hear that you should control your mind, the mind may get all excited and shout that if you do this, if you control your mind, you lose your ability to make decisions and solve problems or deal even with the most simple things in the world, because you need to have this inner voice ranting on and on and on and on. That's required for you to do anything. So the mind, can start to preach to you like this very intensely. You can't control me. I have to be here. I'm here to help you. But again, we have to go back to the root of all this. The root of all this is our desires. This is what the chanting Hare Krishna, the process of devotional service, is really aimed at purifying our desires. See, the mind is in fear because the mind is thinking all these desires are there. They're crying out to be satisfied, and I'm busy trying to satisfy them, and you're saying control me. But if you control me, then all these desires, like little babies, and I'm there. This is another thing we'll be talking about, especially tomorrow, about our sangha with the mind. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about relationships, but we don't have to go very far in dealing with relationships, because we are, first of all, are relating with our own minds and senses, and this is a big family circle right there before you start talking about anybody else outside. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. So we're having always this sangha with our mind, and the mind is actually, as I'll be telling you tomorrow, the mind